I'm 80 years old, and there's something I need to say before time decides I've said enough. Not advice, not motivation. A truth. A hard one. Because for most of my life, I believed I was doing everything right. I followed the rules. I waited my turn. I told myself there would be time later. And by the time I realized what that belief had cost me, later had already passed. People think regret comes from wild mistakes, from recklessness, from doing too much. That's not always true. Sometimes regret comes from restraint, from patience, from being careful, from being the person everyone trusts, but no one really knows. I didn't wake up one day at 80 feeling this way. This feeling crept in slowly, quietly, the way rust forms on metal you never check. It didn't announce itself. It waited. It watched. And it stayed silent until the noise of life finally faded enough for me to hear it.
When you're young, time feels generous. It feels like a resource that can't run out. You plan your life as if there's always another chapter waiting, unopened, just around the corner. I did that too. I postponed joy. I postponed risk. I postponed saying certain things out loud. I told myself I'd do them when things were more stable, when I was more ready, when it made more sense. That moment never came. I grew up learning how to be good daughter, good student, good worker, good partner, good woman. I learned early that approval came from obedience, from not causing trouble, from being useful. I was praised for my discipline, for my reliability, for how little I needed. Those compliments felt warm at first. They felt like safety. But over time, they became instructions. Be quiet, be patient, be grateful. Don't want too much. Don't expect too much. Don't ask for more than you're given. So I learned how to wait. I waited for permission. I waited for certainty. I waited for signs that it was finally the right time to choose myself. Every important desire I had came with a delay attached. Not now, not yet. Later. Later became my favorite word. It sounded responsible, mature, sensible. It allowed me to feel like I was moving forward without actually changing anything. Later meant I didn't have to risk disappointment. It meant I didn't have to explain myself. It meant I didn't have to face the fear of choosing wrong. Years passed this way. Quietly, efficiently. I built a life that looked fine from the outside, stable, respectable, predictable. People would say I had done well. I nodded and believed them because believing them was easier than asking myself whether I was actually happy. There's a difference between being safe and being alive. I didn't understand that until much later. I remember being in my 40s and thinking, this isn't forever, I'll change things soon. In my 50s, it became, after this phase. In my 60s, it turned into, I've come too far to start over now. By 70, I stopped saying it out loud at all. Time has a way of negotiating with you. It doesn't demand everything at once. It just asks for a little more patience each year. And if you keep agreeing, one day you wake up and realize you've traded decades for comfort. The hardest part isn't the loss of opportunities. It's the loss of honesty with yourself. You learn how to explain your life in ways that sound reasonable. You learn how to defend choices you never really chose. You learn how to call survival success. I didn't think I was wasting my life. I thought I was protecting it. Then something happened that broke the rhythm. Someone I loved deeply was gone, not gradually, not gently, suddenly. And with them went the illusion that time was negotiable. Standing there, surrounded by memories that could no longer be added to, I felt something I had never allowed myself to feel fully before. Urgency, not panic, not fear, just clarity, the kind that doesn't shout but settles heavily in your chest. I realized that all the waiting I had done wasn't harmless. It wasn't neutral. It had consequences. I had postponed conversations that would now never happen. I had delayed expressions of love that could no longer be received. I had assumed presence was guaranteed, that people would always be there when I finally felt ready. They weren't. That was the moment the truth started forming. Not all at once, piece by piece, quietly, honestly. And it changed how I see everything. After that loss, everything familiar started to feel fragile. Not dramatic, not broken, just thin, like glass you suddenly notice could shatter with one wrong movement. I began replaying moments I once dismissed as ordinary, small conversations, unspoken thoughts, days I rushed through without realizing they were quietly becoming memories. I kept asking myself the same question late at night. When did waiting become my default response to life? I traced it backward, year by year, until I reached a younger version of myself who believed caution was wisdom and restraint was strength. I was taught that wanting too much was dangerous, that asking for more meant you weren't grateful enough. So I learned to downsize my desires before anyone else could. I learned to say, "It's fine," even when it wasn't. Especially when it wasn't. Each time an opportunity appeared, I measured it against stability. Each time love asked something of me, I weighed it against responsibility. Each time joy knocked, I told it to come back later. And joy, unlike obligation, rarely waits. There were moments I felt the pull toward something different, a different path, a different version of myself. But those moments were inconvenient. They disrupted the story I had built about who I was supposed to be. So I treated them like distractions instead of signals. I told myself I was being mature, sensible, patient. I didn't realize I was slowly teaching myself to ignore my own voice. Waiting became a habit. Habits become identities. And identities become prisons you don't notice until the door quietly closes behind you. I watched other people take risks I never allowed myself. Some failed, some succeeded. But all of them seemed alive in a way I couldn't quite name. I told myself their choices were reckless, that I was smarter for staying where I was. Deep down, I envied their courage, even when I pretended not to. Years passed, responsibilities piled up, roles multiplied. I became dependable, necessary, useful, and slowly, invisibly, replaceable in my own life. When you delay yourself long enough, you stop believing you're worth the interruption. The loss I experienced didn't just take someone away. It removed the background noise. Without it, the truth became impossible to ignore. I had been living as if life were a rehearsal, as if the real moment would begin once everything was perfectly arranged. But life doesn't wait for readiness. It only waits for willingness. I started noticing how often I had chosen comfort over connection, silence over honesty, familiar pain over uncertain freedom. None of those choices felt wrong at the time. That's the danger. The cost of waiting doesn't announce itself up front. It accumulates quietly. Regret doesn't arrive screaming. It arrives whispering late at night, asking questions you can't unhear. What if you had said it? What if you had gone? What if you had tried? I realized that my life wasn't shaped by a single mistake, but by thousands of small delays, each one harmless on its own. Together, devastating. I thought I was protecting myself from disappointment. What I was really doing was avoiding responsibility for my own happiness. There's a strange grief that comes with this realization. Not loud, not visible. A private mourning for the person you might have been, if you had trusted yourself sooner. I began thinking about all the moments I told myself there was time. Time to reconnect, time to forgive, time to speak honestly, time to choose differently. Time I believed was flexible. It isn't. Time is patient, but it is not forgiving. I noticed how my memories had gaps, not because nothing happened, but because I hadn't been fully present. I was always preparing for later, never arriving. The truth became clearer with each passing day. Life isn't lost in dramatic failures. It's lost in postponed courage. I don't blame my younger self. She did what she knew. She followed the rules she was given. But I wish someone had told her that safety isn't the same as fulfillment, that being careful isn't the same as being alive. If you're listening to this and you feel that quiet pull inside you, the one you keep postponing, pay attention. That voice doesn't get louder with age. It gets quieter. And one day, if you keep ignoring it, it stops speaking altogether. That's what I'm trying to say. Not to frighten you, to warn you gently. Time doesn't punish you for waiting. It simply moves on without you. I learned that too late. At this age, mornings are quieter, not peaceful, just stripped down. Fewer demands, fewer expectations, fewer places to rush toward. Silence has a way of revealing what noise once hid. And in that silence, the truth finally settled into words I could no longer avoid. The hard truth life taught me after 80 years is this: waiting feels safe, but it is the most dangerous decision you can make. Not because waiting is always wrong, but because most people don't wait with intention. They wait out of fear. Fear of choosing wrong. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of discovering that what they want might cost them the life they've already built. I waited because waiting allowed me to believe I was still in control. As long as I hadn't chosen, nothing was lost. Or so I told myself. But time doesn't reward indecision. It quietly removes options. The day you realize this, there's no dramatic collapse, no sudden breakdown. Just a slow understanding that many doors you assumed would always be there are now closed, not out of cruelty, but because seasons end. I see now that courage doesn't always look like bold action. Sometimes it looks like honest admission. Admitting that the life you're living isn't the one you want. Admitting that staying feels easier than leaving. Admitting that you're afraid. I wish I had respected fear enough to listen to it, instead of letting it decide for me. If I could speak to my younger self, I wouldn't tell her to be reckless. I wouldn't tell her to abandon responsibility. I would tell her this instead. Don't confuse comfort with safety, and don't confuse patience with wisdom. There were conversations I kept postponing because I didn't want to make things uncomfortable. Those conversations would have changed everything. There were paths I didn't take because they felt uncertain. Those paths would have taught me who I really was. What hurts most now isn't what I failed at. It's what I never attempted. People often ask what regret feels like at this age. It isn't constant sadness, it's distance. Distance from the version of yourself you were meant to become. Distance from moments that could have existed if you had trusted yourself sooner. You don't feel it all at once. You feel it when memories replay without expansion, when stories end early, when you realize your past is complete, but parts of you never arrived. This is why I'm saying this now. Not to dwell on what can't be changed, but to speak directly to whoever is listening and still has time. If there is something you keep postponing, ask yourself why. Not the polite answer, the honest one. Is it fear? Is it obligation? Is it the comfort of the familiar? Waiting doesn't make fear disappear. It only gives it more authority. I thought I was buying myself time. I was spending it. Life doesn't ask you to have everything figured out. It asks you to be awake, to notice when your days are repeating, to notice when your heart goes quiet, to notice when you're living on pause. You don't need a dramatic reason to choose differently. Discomfort is reason enough. Restlessness is information. Longing is not a flaw, it is direction. I used to believe that being needed was the same as being fulfilled. It isn't. Being useful is not the same as being alive. At 80, you stop negotiating with illusions. You stop pretending you'll become someone else someday. There is only who you are now and what you do with the time still in front of you. I can't reclaim the years I waited, but I can give you this truth while you still can. Don't wait for certainty. Don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Those things rarely arrive, and when they do, they're often too late. Choose while the choice still belongs to you. Say the words. Take the step. Ask the question. Change the direction. Not recklessly, honestly. Because one day, much sooner than you expect, you will wake up and realize that waiting has quietly decided your life for you. And then you'll understand what I mean. So let me ask you something, before time asks it for me. What are you waiting for right now? And how much of your life are you willing to give it?